Hello Year 7s, welcome to another lesson. Thank you to those that have handed in their work from the previous lesson. Make sure today that you work through the sheet and hand it into your individual geography teacher when you've finished. So a quick recap from last lesson then. I'm going to have a go at matching up these key words with these little sort of easy definitions. That's what you're going to quickly do as a recap from last lesson now. So pause the video and give yourself some time, match them up. Perfect. So erosion is destroying, transportation is moving, and deposition is dropping off. Fantastic. Hopefully you understand those words now. Okay, so today's lesson we're going to look at what happens in the upper course of a river. So that's our key question. So everybody should be able to describe the features of the upper course. Moving up the next one, you'll be able to explain how one feature of the upper course is formed. And if you're up there in the green, you'll be able to explain how two features of the upper course are formed. So that little picture there just shows you some features within the upper course. So we have interlocking spurs, we have a V-shaped valley, we have the source as well. So your task one now is to describe where the source of the River Meden is. And we've looked at the River Meden last lesson. And your task now is to describe where the source of the River Meden is using those maps. So a key skill here in geography is map skills, and I'd like you to have a go at describing where the River Meden is. Pause the video now, please. Okay, so hopefully you have identified that this orange area here is the source. Okay, and you may have also noticed that on here where it says springs is where it's also the source. So the River Meden starts in Plesley Vale to the south of Plesley Pit Country Park and southwest of the A617. Now you may have got more detail than me because there's lots of detail in that map there, which will be absolutely fantastic if you have. Okay, so here is the long profile of a river, and it shows the type of erosion in each section of a river. So in the upper course, we have a lot of vertical erosion. So that means we're going down and we're vertically eroding. Whereas in the middle, we have vertilateral erosion, which means we have both sideways erosion and also erosion down. And then finally, in the lower course, we have lateral erosion, so out long ways, and that's why it's wider in the lower course. So you should now be sort of getting to grips with a few characteristics of the long profile. We're now going to look at one feature. Now our first feature is a V-shaped valley. And you're going to watch this animation, and then if you want to, you can watch it again by rewinding the video. And in no more than 50 words, I'd like you to write a text message to explain what a V-shaped valley is and how it is formed. Now some words to help you are steep, upper course and source. So I'd like you now to watch this animation.
Fast-flowing water carrying large boulders cuts rapidly downwards, causing vertical erosion. At the same time, the hill slopes on the valley sides become unstable. Rain reacts chemically with the rock, breaking it down into smaller pieces. These landslides send material down into the river, where it is washed away. Over time, vertical erosion produces characteristic steep-sided narrow valleys with a V cross-section. In the higher reaches of the river, where the water is fast-flowing, protruding hillsides and interlocking spurs are found.
Fantastic. So you should have now watched that video, and as I say, if you'd like to go back and watch it again, that's fine, but I'd like you to have a go at, in no more than 50 words, write a text message to explain what a V-shaped valley is and how it is formed, and try and get those key words in there. Pause the video now, please. Perfect. So as you can see by the video, V-shaped valley is in the shape of a V, hence why it's called a V-shaped valley. And it's usually in the upper course of a river, and a river will cut a steep V-shaped valley, like I've said. And as it gets nearer the sea, the river becomes larger and wider, and so it goes. So does the valley. It flows through. As more silt and sediment is carried downstream, this is deposited at the mouth of the river, where a delta can be formed, and that's what we looked at last lesson. We looked at a picture of a delta in the Mississippi River. So you should have had a go at doing your little 50-word text message. I've just given you a bit more information about V-shaped valleys and rivers. Hopefully you got all your keywords in there: steep, upper course and source. So just a little bit more detail if you're still unsure. So why do V-shaped valleys occur? Now, a river's discharge is low in the upper course, and so the river only has enough energy to erode downwards. Now you're probably thinking, what do I mean by that? Now, river's discharge is a word we've looked at before, and that means the amount of water in a river. So it's quite low in the upper course. There's not that much water. The river only has enough energy to erode down and not laterally. And this is called vertical erosion, which I have mentioned already. Now, the valley's sides are slowly broken down through weathering, usually through rain, and they start to crack. And eventually, the weathered material is transported via gravity, so that pulls it down, gravity, and rainfall towards the river channel. And this is the river channel here. This process steepens the valley's sides, so it makes it very steep. And the steep-sided and narrow valley shape that is created is typical of upland rivers, and this is what it looks like, a V-shaped valley. Okay, your task 3 now then is to decide which answer is better and why. So is it the red one? V-shaped valley is formed in the upper course of a river. They occur when the river erodes vertically and rain falls on the banks of a river, making them unstable. Over time, this material falls into the river. This not only makes the river deeper, but also makes the land around the river very steep, and it forms a V shape. And green, V-shaped valley is formed when the river erodes downwards and rain makes the land near the river unstable. The material falls into the river, forming a V shape. Okay, so pause the video now and have a go on your worksheet, deciding which answer is better and why. Perfect. Now, personally, I think the red one's a lot better because it's very, very detailed. Okay, that's why I would go with the fact that that is the best one. Now, it uses the word over time, so that's a nice thing to say. Over time, this material falls into the river. I just like the way that one's written. Okay, then, so what is this showing? Now, this is obviously showing lines. Now, hopefully, you'll recognise these lines as contour lines from what we did in the previous few topics ago. And this is actually shows a valley on a OS map. Okay, just like this here, this is showing a valley. So we are moving on. We're going to look at another feature of the upper course because we've looked at one and we're going to look at another one now. And that is interlocking spurs. When the river meets areas of harder rock that are difficult to erode, it winds around them. Okay, so when it reaches harder rock that's difficult to erode, it will wind around it. Okay, because it can't get through, so it's got to go around it. A series of hills form on either side of the river called spurs. As the river flows around these hills, they become interlocked. So a series of interlocking spurs are often found in the upper course of a river valley. So basically, as the river erodes the landscape in the upper course, it winds and bends to avoid areas of hard rock. This creates interlocking spurs, which look a little bit like the interlocking parts of a zip. So you can see on this video here, these parts are interlocking, yeah, like a zip. So if you put, say that was a zip, you'd see that they interlock together. So your task now is using the information that I've just read out. Can you explain in your own words how interlocking spurs are formed? And then a challenge, create your own diagram to explain this. Pause the video, thank you. Okay, perfect. Can't wait to see those diagrams as well. Okay, so we've looked at two features now, and hopefully you're able to explain those in your own words. But firstly, how can we use our map skills to work out that this section of the River Meden is in its upper course? So we're looking again at the OS map. Should be familiar with OS maps from what we did in our previous topics. So look at those contour lines that we've done before. What does that tell you about this area and why it might be the upper course? I'm going to ask you to pause the video now and just have a quick think about what features will show that this is the upper course. Okay, so I mentioned the contour lines, but firstly, as I mentioned previously in the lesson, SPRS stands for springs, and that's usually where a source of river comes from. It's springs, so it comes from underground, and it will usually start the river off. That's what we mean by the source. We also have steep sides, and the way I know that is because I'm looking at these contour lines here, and they're closer together. So if they're closer together, it's steeper. And there's also some rocky outcrops, so we know that a lot of surface rocks are visible. So I would say that this is the upper course based on that information. Okay, task 5 then, drawing in everything we've done in today's lesson. I'd like you to explain the formation of features in the upper course of a river. Using the information that you've learnt in this lesson, I'd like you to answer that question and use the criteria below, which is our lesson objectives. So firstly, if you can just have a go at describing the features of the upper course, that would be okay. But what would be good is if you can explain how one feature of the upper course is formed, and what would be a top geographer answer will be explaining how two features of the upper course are formed. So just some sentence starters for you. A feature of the upper course is, this feature is formed by. Okay, so then you'll explain how that is formed. And if you're not sure, you need to go back in this lesson and familiarise yourself a bit more with the features, and then hand your work back into your geography teacher at the end. Have a great week, Year 7. Take care.